Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18. Thanks for stopping by my channel. I am here with the first of what will, I hope, if all goes to plan, be 31 videos in a row for the next 31 days, participating in the tag/series 31 Days of Witchcraft started by Heather Carter. I will link Heather's channel below, specifically to the video that introduces this tag and outlines the prompts for the month and some of Heather's thinking around coming up with this series. I think that there's a lot of really good questions lined up. So the idea, of course, is that there's 31 prompts, one for each day in May. And this is a bit adjacent to the kinds of content that is on my channel so far. My channel is very much tarot, oracle, divination focused. But I haven't actually spent that much time on my channel talking about my spiritual or religious beliefs or outlooks or practices, in a broader way. And I think that the questions that Heather has come up with are really, they're thought-provoking and they're great, material for discussion. And I also think that, and I really appreciate this, Heather, if you're watching this, I think that they're worded in a broad enough way, in an inclusive enough way that, many people will have things to say for these prompts and be able to participate, whether or not you identify as a pagan or whether you identify as a witch or whether you do anything that you would describe as witchcraft, for example, even though that's in the title. I think that there's a lot of space here to have some great conversations about, what we believe and what we do and why. That has a lot of room for diversity of perspectives, which I'm really excited about. I will also just mention, just so someone doesn't point it out later, I am not going to film every day for 31 days. Right now it is actually, for me, still April. I'll be posting this on May 1st, but I will be filming the videos in batches. So please know that you will not get to see 31 distinct fashionable outfits in a row because it's not happening. So I'm filming in bunches. So get that out of the way. Now, I figure I should just get on to the first prompt for day one. And I will always, for each of these videos, put the prompt in the box below. Feel free to participate in the comments or add your thoughts to the discussion. Even if you don't have a channel, that's totally fine. I love, chatting in the comments with anyone who has anything to say. Please do let me know your thoughts. So the first question is your witchcraft secular, spiritual, or religious? And how does this influence your practice? So there's a question actually later on about whether we think of ourselves as witches or whether that's language we use. I'll talk about that more later, but for the time being, I just want to broaden this and think about it in terms of, is my outlook on life secular, spiritual, or religious? And then how does my kind of personal practice flow from that? So this is something that my answer to, or my thoughts on, has definitely shifted a lot over time. For very much of my adult life so far, I absolutely would have said secular and atheist for sure. I would not say that now. I would definitely say spiritual, though I will say part of my reason for saying spiritual and not, for example, saying religious is bound up with the intersubjectivity of language, which is to say that I think when I describe myself as having a spiritual practice or being a spiritual person or having a, spiritually informed way of looking at the world, I think that's something that I can say to someone and they'll at least have some idea of what that means. I think that religion, there's often a narrower understanding, of what that means. Wherein if one describes himself as religious, the fallout might be saying, well, what religion do you belong to? And that, doesn't quite, reflect my worldview or my practices quite as well. But I wanted to share a quote, actually, I had finished recently reading a book, which is a classic book that probably many of you have already heard of, that was written in the late 70s. And it's called Drawing Down the Moon, Witches, Druids, Goddess Worshippers, and Other Pagans in America. So it's a history of neo-pagan groups and movements and ideas, predominantly in the United States. And again, written in the 70s, so kind of history up to the late 70s. Written by Margot Adler. And she has a definition of religion in the book that I just want to share. And I have the book on my Kindle, so I can't give you a page number, but it is early on in the book. And so this is a direct quote from Margot Adler on religion. She says, quote, "I use the word religion broadly to refer to any set of symbolic forms and acts that relate human beings to ultimate conditions of existence, cosmic questions, and universal concerns. Most people in the West tend to associate the word religion with the type of religion they are used to. They assume that religion must contain beliefs and dogmas and must involve a remote and transcendent deity, usually male, though occasionally neuter, and often removed from human interaction. The idea of a nature religion seems a contradiction in terms. Neo-pagans look at religion differently. They often point out that the root of the word means to relink and to connect, and therefore refers to any philosophy that makes deep connections between human beings and the universe." The science fiction writer Joanna Russ once told a convention that science fiction is a religious literature. Many neo-pagans would agree, end quote. So in this sense, wherein religion is defined as a set of symbolic forms and acts that relates us to the conditions of existence or brings us into engagement with cosmic questions. If that idea of that set of symbols constitutes a religion, then I would say that I have a religious practice. And I would say perhaps that I have a religious outlook on life. However, I don't think, in my experience anyway, where I am, that is really how most people use the word religion in kind of day-to-day speech. So when I'm describing, my outlook or my practices, I generally use the language of spiritual because I think of those options, available to me, and those options of words in the question, secular, spiritual, religious. I think spiritual is the one that is most likely to be understood in the way that I would want it to be understood, and least likely to be heard as something like very different than what I intend, if that makes sense. So, how does this influence your practice? Thinking about that question, it's a bit hard, right? Because of course, my spiritual or religious outlook influences my spiritual or religious practice, right? They mutually inform each other and flow from each other. But I guess some thoughts that I had to answer the question in as direct of a way as I can, thinking of my belief system as a spiritual one does impact things like, for example, where I go in terms of my study and my reading and exploration of possible offshoots of my spiritual path. For example, I do seek in my practice and path ways to connect to and deepen my connection to my environment, to the universe, to the cosmos, to the natural world, which are very important to me. I would describe my practice as nature-based. So it's very much, oriented towards, building those connections and maintaining those connections in good ways. And absolutely taking up what I might call spiritual tools, like, whether that's tarot or oracle cards or other things, to explore these kind of big questions about life and about existence and, what that's all about. So, these are maybe these answers are a bit nebulous, but that is how I would say that thinking about my worldview and my practice as spiritual, but with kind of religious in brackets in the sense that Margot Adler talks about religious, that is how then those outlooks influence my practice, which I'm looking forward to talking about a little bit more as the month goes on. Thanks for watching. I'm really keen to see other folks' responses to this question. Have a great day, and I will see you here tomorrow. Bye.